I think it's very sad indeed. Ben Oluoch is not just a good presenter and a politician. He was a good friend of mine for very many years. I did the radio show with him, educating people about our people, about the Constitution, about good governance, about the elections. I think the very first opportunity before anybody knew me in the political limelight, I think Ben Oluoch was a person that we did quite a lot with. I remember when he wanted to run, Ben Oluoch asked me in the studio whether he should resign. And I told him, you take the first step in your nomination first and tell your boss. I think the boss then was Elizabeth Omolo. I don't know whether she's still in. And he went on to win, I think surprising to very many, just like you said. It's a big setback. In Parliament, we spoke about cancer. We did a motion about it being declared a national disaster. And I think as we set off on the big four, one of the big appeals that we want to make is that let the government make good this motion, set aside money and create cancer testing centers, and I think we should lead as members and politicians. I know people have been talking about lifestyle audit, but I think as members of parliament and leaders, we should talk about health audit. We start by auditing our own health, because that's the only way we will lead this country, and we are able to know that we have a healthy nation. So on behalf of myself, the people of Mathare constituency, I'd like to pass my condolence to the people of Migori, to the family and the Luo Nyanza and the nation for a big loss.
Fair enough, Senator Kangata. Just send your message of condolence to your to the family and friends of the former senator, of the late senator. Yes,
the senator was a very good friend of mine. We met in Senate. He was an avid debater. He was always punctual. He never used to fail coming to Senate and represent the people of Migori. And therefore, we as senators, we shall really miss him. We therefore want to condole with the family. I knew him once we were elected. Later on, I realized he was a former presenter of a very popular radio station called Ramogi FM. First, it shows when he was a presenter, he must have championed for the right things. Otherwise, there's no way he could have been elected. Being elected is not a simple thing, particularly when you're talking of a county. Wide nomination, or even winning, clinching a seat for the entire county. Migori is one of the most populous counties we have in this country. So it means, as a presenter, he must have impacted positively on the people of Migori. And therefore, we want to say we have lost a champion. We have lost a very good person who could have taken Migori to the next political height.
Thank you so much for that, Honorable Amalwa.
Yeah, on the behalf of the great people of Kiminini and Trans Nzoia County at large, I'd like to send our message of condolences to the family and friends of the Senator Ben Oluoch and the people of Migori. And we want to say pole, and we pray to Almighty God to give the family strength and comfort at this difficult time.
Thank you so much for that. Let me just wrap up by reading a message here by the business editor at Citizen TV, Jay Bonyo. He's posted it on his Instagram. He says, Senator Okello had many names as a radio presenter at Ramogi FM. He took morning vernacular shows to new heights. He was a must listen to many amongst Ramogi fans. He trained and mentored many and led many. He surprised many when he clinched the ODM Senate nomination seat. He's now rested, and the nation has lost a man that had a tremendous impact on the careers of many in media and an inspiration to many in the political world as well. And he has asked that the senator rests in peace. And of course, if you have any messages, you can send them to us. 22422 is our SMS line. And if you want to post them on social media, use the hashtag #PowerBreakfast, even as we continue to mourn this great man, Migori senator and former Ramogi FM presenter, Ben Oluoch. Well, let's take a look briefly at some of the headlines in the paper this morning. And on the front page of the Daily Nation and the front page of the Standard, we actually have, in a sense, the same stories, but with slightly different headlines. The front page of the Daily Nation reads, Raila, a quote, ODM to gun for Uhuru job come 2022. And under that, you can see a little quote there. Let me read that. No indication yet of whether Odinga will go for big seat, but opposition leader says he's laying the ground for a better Kenya and is not worried by DP Ruto's early campaigns. And there's a quote there by Raila Odinga that those who have refused to see and embrace the change and those resisting the change and trying to rewind the clock are the ones wallowing in or creating confusion. On the front page of the Standard, a similar headline, it's all about Raila, but with a slightly different connotation there. Raila changes tack over Ruto. At the Orange Retreat, the Standard says that ODM leader dodges bid by his MPs to have those who backed Ruto disciplined in a move to protect the party from internal strife and distraction. And Raila is also quoted here, but a different quote. Are you worried that some people are campaigning? Worry not. A transition is on as the handshake bears tangible results in the war against corruption. Let me start with you, Honorable Oluoch, and just get your thoughts on the meeting yesterday in Mombasa and the talk that first it was a crisis meeting to check the Deputy President and to censure those who've been working with the Deputy President, but in a sense we are getting very different narratives. What's your take on what we saw?
The meeting yesterday was really about taking stock. The meeting had been fixed, I think, almost 3 months ago. Governor Joho had offered to host, but because of different engagements, the time had not come. So I think it wasn't exactly correct that the meeting was a crisis meeting about ODM and about early campaigns and about coast MPs drifting in one direction or the other. I think we had the opportunity to get a brief from the party about what it's doing about different things. But more importantly, we had a briefing from His Excellency, our party leader, about the Building Bridges initiative, and really that was the focus. There was no discussion absolutely about whether somebody is already campaigning for 2022 and who is expressing support, or whether or not indeed we should discipline them. That really was not in the agenda. I think somebody is trying to set the agenda for ODM. So we expressed our support. We had an indication as to, you know, what were the insights into this Building Bridges initiative, the fight against corruption. You had the party leaders saying we are no longer people talking from the outside in the fight against corruption. We are lending our support, and we are part of the fight against corruption and the lifestyle audit. And I think in the end, we gave him the go-ahead. You've seen, I think the Nation covers it well, that Raila is laying the groundwork for a better Kenya, and really that's all there is about it. There's no indication or discussion about whether or not he will run.
So when Joho says that ODM will have a candidate in 2022, was he speaking as an individual? Was he speaking as a deputy party leader?
ODM will have a candidate, and that's grounded on the fact that as a political party, ODM is still in the opposition, and I think that's another thing that came out clearly. We support and engage with government on certain parameters, fight against corruption, and trying to sort out things that came as a result of the badly conducted election. But we still remain in the opposition. We still remain in our role of checking government, and especially we are a government in waiting, and certainly there will be a candidate. And there are lots of people, the potential people who, Governor Kingi himself, Governor Joho himself, and who says if Raila decides that he wants to run, really that's not something that we need to discuss. He's still
fair enough.
Has a right to run.
Come in on this.
Well, first and foremost, it appears ODM wants to shortchange its partners. You recall there is a written agreement where they pledged to their colleagues in the opposition that they are not going to vie for any position come 2022 in terms of the presidential position.
Was it they or Raila, to be specific?
Raila Odinga,
no,
of course. Raila Odinga, but you see the kind of statements that we are seeing in the newspapers, it appears he may as well run. I have no problem with people like Joho running or people like Kingi, but Raila running, it will show you cannot trust him. He entered into an agreement with Kalonzo Musyoka. He entered into an agreement with people like Wetangula and my colleague here, Governor to be Trans Nzoia County. So therefore, when he insists he wants to run, it shows he is not a candid leader. He's not an honest leader. Number two, I also overheard that indeed they read the Riot Act against people who are associating themselves with the Deputy President. I don't understand, because when you talk of a handshake, it means a handshake with everyone. I think it was not a handshake strictly between Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta. It was between two parties. It was between every other person in that position. So when members of parliament of ODM decide to have a handshake with Ruto, there's no problem, and I think they should not be punished.
Okay. You have been challenged about the agreement. Should Raila run again, whether it would be in breach of an agreement that he had with your party leader, amongst others?
First and foremost, I want to confirm that I'm not aware of any agreement, particularly between the member parties and the NASA. Pertaining the issue of whether...
So you've never heard of any agreement?
I've not heard about it, and
so
I was part and parcel of that technical committee. And at no given time, we had an agreement that maybe ODM will not field a candidate. If at all Raila had a meeting and they had an agreement, maybe they did it on the personal level as the principals. But personally, I'm not aware about that. And in any case, if he wants to contest, when you look at the constitution, it allows him to do that. Maybe it was a gentleman's agreement, which we are not yet aware. Now, going back to the meeting in Mombasa about the ODM, I don't see any big deal about this, because they were just meeting as a NEC and as PG, and as Honorable Oluoch has clearly put it, it is part of maybe getting status reports. The same way under NASA, as in Ford Kenya, we've also been meeting to strengthen our party, and we've always said that NASA is intact. And of course, as Ford Kenya, we're also going to have a presidential candidate when it comes to 2022.